Vindictus, Part 3, Battle Lines. Previously on Vindictus. Following discovery by the ever-expanding Federation, Aurak's distress calls bring Lou Blake and Zach Ensor together with veteran rebels Del Tarrant and Villa Restal on Gouda Prime to rescue the supercomputer from the clutches of the ruthless Commissioner Lamia. The unlikely team find Aurak, who has been hidden for decades, fighting off unexpected visitors from the system, which presents the opportunity to teleport from the surface to an unknown alien space vessel. On arrival, the ship they name the Vindictus is eerily familiar to both Tarrant and Villa. Aided by the enigmatic Semele, one of the very latest mutoids, whose programming is failing, the crew overcome Alters and the Federation to seize control of their new vessel. Blake decides it's time to gather support against the totalitarian Federation. Following discussions with a warrior named Callan from the planet Zadith, Blake attempts to strike an alliance with a deeply religious society. On arrival, all does not go to plan when Semele is imprisoned and labelled an abomination after incurring the wrath of the planet's high priest and Callan's fanatical brother, Zaylan, who is the Dane of their clan. Tarrant attempts a rescue, only to find Semele has murdered Zaylan in self-defense as he destroyed her life-preserving serum. Tarrant, unable to abate Semele's uncontrolled feeding frenzy, meets a violent end as the mutoid drains his blood. Blake and Callan believe that Zaylan perished while killing Tarrant after Semele disguises the scene by charring the two bodies with laser fire. Under the honor code of his planet, Callan vows his allegiance to Blake and joins the crew of the Vindictus. As Blake and the crew struggle to accept the sudden loss of Tarrant, she feels more uncertain than ever about the motives of the people she has surrounded herself with. But will the evolving crew now stand together as new battle lines are drawn? Lamia looked at Arik across the flight deck of the command-class pursuit ship. She sensed that the Space Commander was looking forward to this assignment, a chance for some good old-fashioned bloodshed on the ground, while she tried to manipulate the situation diplomatically, to the Federation's advantage.
What is your assessment of the situation on Kainessos, Space Commander?
Lamia asked more to break the silence than with genuine interest in Arik's point of view. He swivelled his chair to face her.
It's a typical response when a planet first joins the Federation, Commissioner. There isn't a big enough population or enough economic worth since we cut their uranium ore trading lines to sustain an insurgence for long. We have troops down there now eliminating some of the rebels.
Yes, but killing the population so obviously is not a good look when a planet has just come on board. It is likely to lead to dissent, and in the end, a renewed campaign for independence. Nothing fuels rebellion quite like martyrdom, and Kainessos took a lot of resources and my convincing the higher echelons to support. We need to restrict free will as much as we can.
Ah, now it makes sense why you're here, Lamia. Another notch of success for the expansion program. I should have known you wouldn't support a strictly military operation.
There will be a military element, Arik. You and your troops will have their action. Don't worry about that. I plan to convince them that a short period of martial law is required before we roll out Pylene 74 forcibly.
We have clearance?
Well, you have ultimate authority from the Supreme Imperator to use any means necessary to bring the planet under control and to personally oversee the subjugation. How do you plan to use that authority, Space Commander?
Lamia wasn't sure how far Arik would go in pursuit of duty, but was eager to find out.
Well, once we have established martial law, any person found to not be taking a daily dose of Pylene 74 will be summarily executed, along with their family. We will do what it takes to bring this planet to order and ensure it remains that way.
Let us use Kinesos as an example of what happens to those who defy the Federation. We shall be there in a few hours, so I am going to get some rest before the protracted diplomacy begins.
Lamia left the flight deck, her mind straying to carnal desires for Arik once more. To be subjugated to the man's will as surely as the population of Kinesos would be, and with the same ruthless brutality, she couldn't decide which excited her more. Ensor entered the flight deck carrying Aurak. In the central seating area sat Blake, Semele and Callan, engrossed in a leisurely game of space risk.
Care to join us, Ensor?
Not enough of a challenge for me. I'm afraid I can already see how to win your game. Aside from that, I think Aurak has picked up something of interest to you from our monitoring of Federation activities.
What is it then?
A flotilla of 3 pursuit ships is on its way to Kinesos, under the command of none other than Commissioner Lamia herself.
Kinesos? What do the Federation want there?
Aurak.
Kinesos has recently been added to the list of Federation-aligned planets. This has been achieved through the Federation's intercepting of planetary supply lines for universal trade, that supply being uranium ore to the outer worlds. All trade now goes through the Federation Universal Trade Alliance mainframe, which means Kinesos is no longer able to trade independently as it did previously.
How has this been achieved?
Semele, who had been trying in vain to catch Ensor's eye, spoke more shortly than she intended.
Available information indicates that the Federation's Economic Congress has been able to decode and gain access to the trading mainframe of Kinesos, halting all trade until authorized by the Congress, in effect denying Kinesos its economic independence.
Highly unethical, but potentially not illegal. Depending upon the status of the planet, it would not be the first time the Federation has muscled in on trade when a planet is close to joining. So why are we interested?
Semele's economic knowledge came as something of a surprise to Ensor, judging by the slightly alarmed look on his face.
The reason for alarm is quite obvious.
Computer, lose the superiority complex and tell us what we need to know.
Callan glared at Aurak, still not comfortable speaking with a computer.
Very well. The presence of Commissioner Lamia and her pursuit ships would suggest that the Federation intends to strategically implement its expansion program on Kinesos.
In that case, it seems the Federation are intending to subjugate the population with Pylene 74 and take total control of the planet, removing the free will of the population. We have no choice. We have to go to Kinesos.
Unbeknownst to the crew, Villa had stood quietly in the corridor at the head of the flight deck for a few minutes, listening to the conversation, before making his way noisily down the steps to join the rest of the crew.
We should stay away. Whatever is happening on Kinesos is a danger to us, and I've been involved in too many interventions of this kind in the past. Nothing good will come of it. Trust me. We should turn around and go in the opposite direction before we all get killed.
Villa stared suspiciously at Callan, making it obvious that he still had a little trust in the Zadithan, and held him at least partially responsible for the death of Tarrant.
We have Vindictus, one of the most powerful ships in space, Villa. With all our advantages, we can't stand by and allow the Federation to suppress another planet. 7 million more people would lose their right to live as they see fit.
It would be dishonourable not to intervene when we are able to.
Or we can stay at a distance and have Aurak intercept the trade line the Federation has implemented. The source is nearby, probably traceable to the command ship. We could steal millions of credits, adding to our resources and with which we could cause major harm to the Federation. I propose a wealthy watching brief.
Ensor knew this would appeal to Villa, at least, and hoped the potential for damage to the Federation would sway Blake.
I like your style.
Semele spoke quietly, but with an implied menace in her voice that matched the darkening green of her eyes.
The Federation is gaining in power, and if we are to remain free, we must do what we can to stop them. Also, if Lamia is there, then Arik will be there too. After my defection, Aurak intercepted Arik raising an order to wipe out all mutoids, an order which Lamia overturned. I need to eradicate him. He is no better than an animal and a threat to those like me while he lives. They force us to be converted and then seek to dispose of us as if we are simple assets. It is sickening. I will go to Kinesos with or without the rest of you. Please do not attempt to stop me.
Without Tarrant, Villa felt alone, the sole voice of reason among these young fanatics who had no real experience of just how deadly interfering in Federation operations could be, and how quickly things could go wrong. Ensor, at least, was clever enough to see the foolishness of rushing headlong into a conflict without considering all the options. Villa didn't like or trust the younger man, but at least in this instance, Villa agreed wholeheartedly with his suggested course of action.
Tarrant always said that mutoids were not the solution for disobedient troops. I mean, do you actually feel anything? Other than a desire for serum forcing your actions?
Semele stood up from her seat and stared at Villa. He wondered if his flippant questioning had overstepped the mark and moved towards Blake.
Mutoid transformation gives some facing death from disease, as I was, another chance at life, and we are becoming increasingly human as science progresses, with myself being one of the most recent versions. Do not challenge my reasoning further, Villa.
So, are you now in favour of the Federation gaining planetary control through subjugation, Villa?
Blake glared at him disdainfully. Villa sensed the atmosphere was turning against him. The all-too-familiar feeling of his warnings being ignored by those around him washed over Villa, and he continued, haltingly.
Why? Why would you ever doubt my hatred for the Federation after all these years? I know you think it's black and white, Blake, an obvious win, but I've seen things you haven't. All right. Let's go and see if we can help.
Koios, set course for Kinesos. Maximum speed.
Confirmed.
As Blake began directing, Callan and Semele found themselves smiling at each other unexpectedly, before Callan broke away awkwardly, remembering that she was a non-humanoid. The crew moved swiftly to their stations as the journey to Kinesos was only a short one, and they were already near to Sector 2. Ensor forced his expression to remain impassive, although he was annoyed at Blake's dismissal of his suggestion of a less direct assault on Federation resources.
All right, Blake. I'll play along for now. There are other ways to get what I want, and if you don't want to participate, then I don't need your permission.
He did think Villa might be useful. The older man was smart enough to see the foolishness of open confrontation with the Federation, even if the others were blinded by notions of heroism. Ensor made a mental note to speak to Villa alone, concluding that with the right persuasion, he might prove to be an ally. Seated opposite President Sandran of Kainessos, Commissioner Lamia glanced briefly around the large, ornate room that served as the presidential office of the planet's elected leader. She noted the dark wood panelling, the portraits of former presidents, and the gilt-edged, elaborately carved surface of the current president's desk, with an inward expression of disdain. She much preferred minimalist decor and pristine, unadorned surfaces.
Thank goodness there will be time enough to redecorate later, once a Federation-appointed governor can be installed.
The president's appearance pleased her greatly, though not aesthetically, more because of his drawn face, surrounded by unkempt greying hair, making him look so much older than even recent images of him, confirming that he was a tired and worn-down leader, an easy subject for her experiment. Before speaking, Lamia looked over her right shoulder to where Space Commander Arik stood with his arms crossed behind his back, having refused the chair offered to him. Whether by persuasion or by more forceful methods, Sandran would comply. Of that, Lamia had no doubt. She leaned towards the president slightly, and with a brilliant smile that did not quite hide the predatory glitter of her black-lined hazel eyes, Lamia spoke in soothing tones.
Space Commander Arik and I are most appreciative of you taking the time to see us, President Sandran. This is especially true during this time of peaceful transition for Kainessos, as your homeworld prepares to benefit, along with the other planets aligned to the Federation.
For a moment, Sandran appeared to be stunned, as if he couldn't believe her words. He abruptly stood up, anger darkening his grey eyes and making his voice shake slightly. He was in his mid-60s at least, and had been a leading political figure on Kainessos for some time, with many years as opposition leader to the previously long-serving, more conservative government. He felt uneasy that his vision of creating a more open and outward-facing society, less reliant on the sale of uranium ore, which he opposed, seemed now to be leading to a loss of independence, with the decision to ally themselves more closely with the Federation. Sweeping his thick, grey hair aside and straightening his suit jacket only made his nervousness more obvious.
Peaceful transition. Federation troops garrisoned in every city on the planet. Citizens being threatened, even murdered by the thousands, as your soldiers take control of local governments and businesses by force. This is not what we discussed during negotiations, Commissioner Lamia. The nature of our agreement was to be economic, enhancing the range of our exports, which is why we allowed you to access our trading terminal. I was assured that the Federation presence here would be minimal, a few troops to assist with updating infrastructure to facilitate increased trade. Instead, there is now widespread rebellion, citizens taking up arms in every population centre on Kainessos, and threats of assassination against government officials. I myself have been threatened by members of my own family. I tell you, this has to stop now.
His stare shifted nervously between Lamia and Arik.
I agree completely, President. This current state of affairs, this rebellion, is unacceptable and is slowing much-needed progress for us all. You will be pleased to know that the Federation understands how challenging these transitions can be and has an easily implemented solution. Pylene 74 is a miraculous drug that calms the minds of those who take it, making them compliant and willing to listen to leaders such as yourself, who can help them see reason. Once it is distributed through the population, all resistance will vanish, and your world can move forward onto its glorious new future as a loyal member of the Federation.
A brief nod from Lamia saw Arik move stealthily next to where Sandran stood.
Drug-induced mind control. Are you completely insane? That is reprehensible, evil, and the population of Kainessos will never comply. I will not permit it. You will never be allowed to force this on the free people of this planet.
think you will allow it. In fact, it is only fitting that you have the honour of being the first citizen of Kynessos to receive the drug, and afterwards I assure you that all your doubts and fears will melt away, and you will embrace our vision of the future.
Reid spun the horrified president around and pinned him roughly, face down on the desk in front of him. Sandran's terrified struggling was no match for Reid's brutal strength. His muscular arms distracted Niamh briefly before he wrenched Sandran's head to one side, exposing his neck. Niamh pulled a small syringe out of her boot and moved confidently towards Sandran. Niamh leaned forward and plunged the needle directly into Sandran's jugular vein, dispensing the purple liquid into the writhing man's body with a press of a button. Sandran felt a sharp pain, followed by a warm, tingling sensation that spread quickly through his body, at first paralyzing him and then calming him. His anger and fear seemed to dissolve, replaced by a sense of intense well-being. He felt as if he were weightless, floating above his body, unable to remember why he had been so distraught only seconds before. He gazed up at Niamh, unable to hear what she was saying to Reid, but wanting to do her will, to be led by her, and to have her make decisions for him so he could be left in peace.
Observe closely, Space Commander. In just minutes he will be more obedient than the best trained dog, and of course then the addiction will kick in, thanks to the addition of a small dose of synthetic shadow. The addiction will feed their own compliance, some needing up to 5 tablets a day, especially the young. It makes for very obedient subjects now and into the future.
Niamh smiled broadly, enjoying this demonstration of a drug so effective it had seen the expansion program rapidly conquer an ever-growing number of worlds.
This will, of course, all be reported as the outcome of legitimate negotiations. Sandran will announce the way forward to his people, now he is in tune with her thinking.
Niamh smiled smugly, holding aloft the empty syringe like a trophy. Reid released his grip on Sandran and looked with ill-disguised disgust at the president's glassy-eyed expression. He disliked the idea of using mind-controlled drugs to quell the population. In his view, overwhelming force was the way to gain true compliance, and there was no glory in subduing a legion of automatons. He agreed that the reach of the Federation must be expanded by all means necessary, just as long as there was still the need for the power of the military. Reid had spoken to his field commanders on Kynessos. The population was surprisingly stubborn, and it would not be as easy as Niamh imagined to get the people of the planet to willingly ingest the drug. Strong measures would still be required, and Reid planned to personally oversee the operation and lead by example if needed. The Space Commander had no qualms about getting blood on his hands. In fact, he welcomed it, feeling the overwhelming urge to cleanse the taint that being too long in the office of diplomacy left on him. To watch the enemies of the Federation die was the only drug he desired. Sandran was known for his impassioned speeches. A broadcast message was sent out across all entertainment media and repeated throughout the evening. An unusually relaxed President Sandran delivered the edict, smiling directly at the camera, as if totally at ease. The message, drafted by Niamh, who could be seen in the background of the presidential office by any sharp-eyed observers.
Quiet, please.
Are you ready? 5, 4, 3.
Citizens of Kynessos, today marks the beginning of a bright new future for our peoples. We will be able to eradicate the desire for power, for war, for greed, and move towards a utopian future as part of the Terran Federation. It will be a future where we all play a key role in easing the burdens that the ills of our society bring to us all. Freedom from struggle with safety and well-being for all will become a reality. My friends, I must tell you that mind-altering alien pathogens have been detected in our atmosphere, the effects of which can include extreme aggression, deep depression, and ultimately insanity. But do not be afraid. Within the next few days, you and your families are to visit your local health care facility and receive an injection that will vaccinate you against the effects of these pathogens. There is no immediate danger if you take the vaccine. After the initial dose, you and your family, all ages, simply take 1 tablet daily to boost the effects of the vaccine. It is a condition of your freedom to undertake these instructions, and your compliance will be monitored through your My Citizen implants. If you do not wish to comply, then you will be visited by an official who will discuss your concerns with you. Today is the beginning of a new Kinesos, one in which we will build a better future and live in harmony.
Kinesos was a medium-sized planet that had, due to meteorological impacts from its large moon, very few continents fit for population. The large moon also provided sufficient cover for the arrival of the Vindictus. Callan had learnt the strategy of using a moon as cover a long time ago. This approach was more effective than any cloaking device that had ever been trialled, none of which had yet proven successful over a prolonged period. Not even the advanced technological know-how of the system had managed to implement a successful cloaking concept. The crew re-watched President Sandran's address on the main viewer for the 3rd time.
Today is the beginning.
Blake shaking her head incredulously at what she was hearing.
A better future and live in harmony.
Now you see why we must try to help. 7 million people enslaved and brutalized. We can't stay out of it.
Right, but what exactly do you have planned, Blake? Nothing involving breaking and entering, I hope.
No, Villa, there will be no need for your, specialized skills this time. Callan and Semele will teleport to the surface. I've been in contact with the rebel leaders and they've agreed to meet with you.
Blake tried to make her voice sound as neutral as possible, knowing that neither the Zadathan nor Semele would be happy with the mission pairing. Callan's face had a look of horror at the idea of spending time with the mutoid, towards whom he still felt an intense and deeply ingrained distrust. Semele looked equally offended.
I will go alone, Blake. I do not need protection or help from him.
Semele glared at Callan with obvious distaste. Blake raised a hand placatingly.
No one doubts your ability to take care of yourself, Semele, but Callan is the only one among us who has experience in battle strategy. He will be able to advise the rebels on how best to deploy their limited numbers against the Federation forces, and you know Federation tactics and capabilities. You can update and prepare them for what they may encounter. I need you both on the surface, and you need to remember who the real enemy is, to remember why you're both here.
I will go to the surface, but only to honour my pledge. Know that this changes nothing, and I remain distrustful of that abomination.
Semele's eyes seemed to blaze a brighter shade of green upon hearing Callan's words. the hard set of her beautiful features leaving no doubt as to her own feelings towards the warrior. Ensor, who had remained silent as he listened to the proceedings, suddenly spoke up.
Not to throw cold water on your plans, Blake, but won't a 6.5 feet tall Zadithan stand out a bit? He's not exactly going to blend in with the locals.
Kynessos has a large off-world population, and while I'm sure Zadithan may be a slightly unusual visitor, I doubt anyone is going to risk confronting him directly. Besides, Callan and Semele aren't going to be interacting with anyone but the rebel leaders. After making contact, they'll both be taken directly to the insurgent base, which is several miles away from the rendezvous. There is to be absolutely no engagement with Federation troops.
She turned briefly to instruct Villa and Ensor.
Both of you stay on the flight deck. I know we have some cover, thanks to the moon, but with so many Federation ships coming and going, there's still a chance one of them will spot us, and battle computers need to be online and ready.
Blake looked pointedly at Callan and Semele, gesturing for them to follow her. She hoped the others wouldn't see how terrified she was at the thought of sending yet more of her crew into harm's way, when the loss of Tarrant on Zadith still haunted her every thought.
This has to work. This crew needs a win. Need to know we can strike a real blow to the Federation. I need this to succeed, and I need to know this isn't a fool's errand.
Callan had removed his warrior's legionnaire uniform, opting for plain grey clothing underneath a long grey coat, which allowed him to hide his striking white blonde hair under the hood and his various knives under the coat body. The long, slender Vindictus gun and power pack was attached to his thick leather belt. Warrior and Mutoid stepped into the teleport bay, deliberately keeping their distance from each other. Blake, who sat at the teleport controls, swept aside a stray hair for the umpteenth time and double-checked the coordinates.
Remember, there'll be Federation troops everywhere, so try to keep out of sight. The insurgent group should be nearby when you arrive, but we haven't been able to maintain any form of contact in case of possible monitoring, and they don't have any advanced communications equipment. Report back when you get down there, and every hour after that. We'll ensure the teleport is manned for a quick pickup if needed.
Blake tried to sound unconcerned.
How will we recognise the insurgents?
They won't be Federation troops or wandering around in a daze, it seems. Seriously though, they'll be wearing a thick purple armband on their right arm. Primitive, I know, but that is the way things are down there. These aren't normally warlike people. That's why they need our help.
Blake looked at Semele, hoping for a show of reassurance. However, none was forthcoming as she readied herself in the teleport bay.
Ready?
I'm always ready for battle.
Good luck.
Callan and Semele appeared as if from nowhere in the town centre of Nessos, the most populated area on the planet and the meeting location given by the insurgents. Taking in their surroundings, Callan noted they were in a residential area surrounded by buildings that appeared to be made from identical golden-brown limestone. He shifted uncomfortably under his heavy grey cloak, the warm air oppressive and the fine sandy dust making the air seem hazy, blurring the outlines of the large moon that dominated the sky even during daylight. Nessos usually bustled with everyday activity, but not today. The narrow, high-sided streets were almost deserted except for Federation troopers forcing any members of the population that were outside into their homes. Realizing they were vulnerable out in the open and in need of cover, Callan pointed to a nearby food store. As they burst through the door rather hurriedly, guns raised, the shop owner, a stocky, middle-aged man, drew a small laser pistol on them. He stood uncertainly, realizing his two visitors were neither part of the Federation Guard nor part of any local military.
Easy now, we aren't officials.
Callan lowered his weapon, hoping to win his trust. It seemed to work, as the store owner also lowered his weapon.
What is your name?
I am Tedrax. Who the hell are you?
We are here to help. Can you secure your premises?
Tedrax paused, considering whether to trust the two strangers. They were obviously off-worlders, and Tedrax knew that the Federation would be unlikely to use such conspicuous undercover agents. Nodding to himself, Tedrax gestured to Semele and Callan to follow him inside. The storekeeper activated a few key-driven controls, and the store's windows and doors were sealed off with strong-looking industrial shutters.
Will they hold?
They will, for some time.
What are they made of?
They're Herculaneum.
The mutoid raised her eyebrows in surprise.
Herculaneum is rather high-tech and expensive for a store like this, is it not?
We are a meeting place for those who have the planet's best interests at heart.
Tedrax spoke tentatively, clearly nervous as to how his two visitors would respond to his revelation.
You mean the insurgents? You host their meetings here?
Yes.
Excellent. We are here to meet them. We want to help. Where are they now?
I am afraid you have missed them. They have gone to the law enforcement center to try and free members of the population being held there because they would not take the vaccine.
I see. Could we get there without being seen?
Callan glared at her, irritated that Semele seemed not at all willing to let him take the lead.
You can go through the back streets. I can show you the way, but there are troops everywhere, although I'm not sure if they're aware of the local geography yet. And that will give us the upper hand.
He pointed to the rear entrance of his store. Semele and Callan looked at each other and nodded, both keen to make progress.
Over here. Yes, you. Open that. Sir.
At that moment, a large patch of glowing red light appeared, clearly attempting to pierce the shutters at the front of the store.
Looks like a heat lance. That will take some time depending upon how good it is, although it does seem to be getting warm in here now. We need to move out.
The unlikely trio made their way towards the rear exit, hoping that Tedrax was right, and the Federation guards had not yet familiarized themselves fully with the area. Just as they reached the door, an official broadcast appeared on a wall-mounted screen at the back of the store. The lancing of the front door stopped for a moment, suggesting the broadcast could also be heard outside. Semele glanced at the screen and saw the remorseless face of Space Commander Arik emblazoned upon it. Seeing him filled her with rage, the green glow of her eyes giving away her emotions, and she knew that nothing he was about to say would be good news.
I am Space Commander Arik of the Terran Federation. Your president has instructed all the citizens to do their civic duty. However, it is obvious there are large pockets of disobedience across the population. This will not be tolerated, and your avoidance of the beneficial and completely harmless vaccine is putting your fellow citizens at risk due to the contagious nature of the alien pathogens in your atmosphere.
His eyes seemed to pierce the screen as he spoke.
As a result, and for your own safety, this planet is now under martial law. Federation officers will attend your homes for the purposes of administering the medication. Kinesis is in full lockdown and you must remain in your homes until everyone has received an initial dose. You should know that failure to do so will be seen as direct disobedience of martial law and may result in immediate execution of you and your families. It is time to comply with your President's edict for your own sake and for the future of Kinesis.
Arik's chilling address had no sooner ended when the lancing of the door began once more. Without hesitation, Tedrax led the way through to the rear exit of the store leading to the back streets of Nessos. While Tedrax was obviously aging, he was still physically fit and did not slow down Semele and Callan's progress. The streets were no more than narrow alleys, sometimes only wide enough for one person to pass before opening out only to accommodate entrances to buildings. Habitable space was at such a premium that every inch was used sparingly. As they passed one residence, Semele paused, hearing raised voices and desperate pleading inside.
You can't force us.
Callan tried to grab her arm, but the mutoid surprised him by breaking his grip easily, and she moved stealthily towards the back entrance of the building. Opening the door ajar, just enough to hear and see what was happening inside, Semele saw 2 children, no older than 10, a boy and a girl, being held down and injected by Federation guards. A woman was screaming in protest as she and a man were held against their will, struggling against the wall, the man flailing his arms and legs violently as he attempted to break free. At that moment, and to Semele's surprise, Reid entered the residence, his tall, black-clad form filling the doorway.
Everybody, calm down. You need to submit or it'll be worse for you.
Suddenly, the man freed himself and launched himself at Reid, who killed him instantly with a single shot of his blaster. The children froze in shock, and the woman screamed in terror. She fell to her knees, sobbing, and reached for her children. Reid placed the gun to her forehead and fired mercilessly. He paused, addressing the troopers.
These children are of no use now. Kill them.
The troops hesitated, obviously uneasy with the order. Without hesitation, Reid turned back once more and shot the 2 children without blinking. Then he turned to face the squadron leader.
And for your insubordination... Any hesitation in following orders will be treated as treason, resulting in immediate court-martial and summary execution. I would suggest you learn from your squadron leader's mistake and act accordingly.
The Federation soldiers stood motionless in witness to the carnage unfolding in front of their eyes. At the door, Semele moved to try and enter the premises. Callan gripped her arm firmly.
That would be suicidal.
Semele glared at Callan, frustrated in the knowledge that he was right.
You'll get us all killed with stupid moves like that.
Semele looked to the older man and nodded. Thankfully, she was already making her way purposefully towards the back alley once more. Commissioner Lamia made her way from her assigned apartment, the short distance to the grey, limestone government headquarters, which was in stark contrast to the warm, honey-coloured oolitic limestone that typified the residential architecture in Nessos. Ahead was another day of political negotiations, which thankfully would be far easier than usual. All of the Nessos government representatives due to be present were now firmly in the grip of Pyline addiction and were suitably submissive to suggestion. While she enjoyed the prospect of an easy day, part of her missed the testing conversations that usually accompanied such negotiations. Today, they would achieve the agreement, and Nessos would then serve the Federation by developing and manufacturing advanced healthcare products. The market for the planet's traditional export of uranium ore had since been saturated due to interference from the Federation's Economic Congress. The whole planet, its history, economy, and people would change almost overnight, and all to serve the requirements of the Federation's elite. Lamia felt an unpleasant tingle in her stomach, a yearning for some Pyline, caused by her injecting an extremely diluted dose of the drug the evening before. It had just been to help her get in the mood for spending time in the local bars, to seek some of the nighttime activity that she desired. It wasn't the first time she had used the drug in this way, and she enjoyed its effects. For a lingering moment, as the craving for Pyline hit her, she understood how vast swathes of the population must now be feeling. Even a low dose of the drug had affected her personality, albeit temporarily, just as she had hoped, allowing her to spend an enjoyable night with an inebriated, lowly-ranked Nessos trooper, who was completely unaware who she was. She hoped the trooper would not be at today's proceedings, as being recognised could lead to embarrassing complications and potentially a loss of position. She often took risks during missions like this, welcoming the danger that brought with it heightened pleasure. She pushed back her well-groomed, short-cropped silver hair, the elegantly fitting purple dress with matching high heels, nothing like her casual look of the prior evening, namely an extremely short dress and garish, smudged makeup. She doubted that she would be at all recognisable, even had the trooper been present. Lamia gulped some water to help clear her head and walked towards the law enforcement centre, where she could see that Reid had already assembled a squad of at least 30 Federation troopers. She stopped at the sight of over 50 men, women and children being assembled in rows before the menacing black-clad soldiers. President Sandran stood next to the Space Commander as Reid started to bellow his orders on yet another broadcast.
Attention, citizens of Nessos. By order of the President, those unwilling to play their part in protecting society are to be summarily executed. This is the fate that will befall those who choose to disobey and place their fellow citizens at risk.
Reid raised his weapon, awaiting the order from the President, who was staring ahead with a disturbingly inappropriate smile on his face, as if in a trance. Reid nudged him.
Yes, indeed. Fire.
Reid and the troopers obeyed. The shooting continued until all of the prisoners present had fallen. Reid himself dispatching more than any of the troopers, such was his proficiency. Lamia didn't watch, turning her back on the incident, before striding away into the government chambers. As ruthless as she was, this part of any conquest never really appealed to her, at least not to observe. If she didn't see it, she could write it off as collateral damage, unpleasant, but necessary to the success of the Federation and, more importantly, to her own ambition. Turning to face the crowd, drops of blood spattered on his black uniform and saturnine features. Reid spoke, his dark eyes burning with fanaticism.
Let this be a lesson to anyone who is tempted to not protect their fellow citizens from the alien pathogens present on this world.
The Space Commander turned to Sandran, who stood at her lectern, and prepared to read an address written by Lamia.
Today is a day of celebration as we look to finalise the creation of 12 new manufacturing plants, providing healthcare products that will be exported to all Federation worlds. This will create thousands of jobs for the people of our world and replace our failed uranium ore sector.
Sandran shuffled away towards the government chambers, following Lamia. Callan, Semele and Tedrax watched the brutal executions from behind a small office building approximately 200 metres away. Callan gestured for them to move into the cover of the back streets as Federation troopers marched along the concourse with another line of dissidents being led to the same fate as that which they had just witnessed. Before Semele and Callan could stop him, Tedrax broke cover suddenly, his speed belying his age, as he shot down 3 guards on his way to the back of the queue of civilians. He grabbed 2 startled men by their arms, both of whom were wearing the purple armbands Blake had described, and were obviously members of the insurgency. Callan and Semele broke their cover and tried to reach him, but Tedrax was wrestled to the ground by 2 guards. A third guard placed a gun to his head. The 2 men Tedrax had tried to rescue were placed swiftly back into line. Semele was surprised at the sharp pang she felt over the death of the shopkeeper, as she had only known him a short time.
I'm sorry, Tedrax.
She and Callan turned to move into the back streets, and they were met by no less than 5 Federation troopers, who had clearly made their way through the narrow passages behind them.
Drop your weapons. You are not of this planet. Who are you?
Callan and Semele placed their guns on the ground and raised their hands in surrender, saying nothing. The 4 guards formed a split formation, 2 of them standing in front and 2 behind Semele and Callan, with their guns trained. The squadron leader stood to one side and barked his orders.
Take them to the detention centre and mark them for interrogation, followed by execution. As they are obviously off-worlders, and since this planet is in lockdown, Space Commander Arik will want to know how they got here and where they came from.
As Callan and Semele were led into the detention area inside the Law Enforcement Centre, the guards kept their weapons trained on them, obviously unnerved by the sheer size of the Zadithan, who towered over the tallest of the soldiers by several inches. Their disquiet was ruffled further, though, by the inhuman calm of the beautiful mutoid. The Federation squadron leader waved his arm, and the guards immediately pulled the Vindictus handguns from the holsters worn around the captives' waists. Callan's cloak was also removed, revealing the numerous knives attached to various belts across his person, all of which were confiscated. Callan had managed to take off his communications bracelet without attracting the attention of the guards, and had dropped it subtly on the carpeted area at the entrance of the building. It was not a precise plan for a way out, but it was all he could think of in the seconds before the guards began the body search. He glanced surreptitiously at his bracelet before turning to see a guard wrench Semele's from her wrist.
What is that?
Just a decorative bauble. I don't think it's your colour.
The squadron leader slapped Semele across her face with the back of his hand. He was clearly shocked that the blow had no impact on the mutoid, and Semele smiled at him coldly, which added to his apparent unease. He stepped back from her cautiously as the imposing figure of Arik entered the building. All the troops saluted the Space Commander. Arik smiled as he laid eyes on Semele and the Zadithan.
Good work, Squadron 5. Today just gets better and better. Squadron Leader, get hold of a mutoid mind probe and take this one to the interrogation section. Put the Zadithan in a cell. Very soon we will know everything about this group of renegades, Aurak, and a particularly powerful spacecraft we need to capture.
He turned to look at Semele.
The treachery and atrocities you've committed against the Federation end here, Semele. Once you've been re-assimilated as a basic combat mutoid, you will again be useful. It isn't possible to escape your destiny, so welcome back.
At the wave of his arm, Callan and Semele were led away in opposite directions.
Squadron Leader, I will undertake the interrogation of the mutoid. Summon Commissioner Lamia to join me in the interrogation area immediately.
At once, sir.
Semele was bound to a chair on one side of a small, brightly lit room. On her head was a device that looked like nothing more than a set of headphones. However, the simplistic appearance belied its function. This powerful equipment allowed the Federation to garner any information from Mutoid's mind at will. Reid sat on one of 2 chairs opposite Semele, with 2 troops guarding the door.
You'd better have a good reason for this, Space Commander, as you have taken me from an official banquet celebrating the addition of this pathetic planet to the Federation.
Oh, I do, Commissioner. You see, this is Semele.
Ah, Semele, how wonderful to see you again. You know what happens now, don't you?
Of course. You will find out everything you want to know.
Semele spoke calmly, with only the faintest flicker in her green eyes and a tightening around her mouth, betraying the despair she was feeling.
Indeed we will. And far more than that. You will be reconditioned as a standard mutoid. So any ambitions you once had for freedom will be lost, and your memories, once we have what we need, erased. You will be renamed and reassigned. I never like to waste a resource.
As Lamia spoke, Semele attempted to struggle, but she could not break the bonds holding her in place. As she did so, Reid flicked a switch on a small box-shaped device he held in his hand. The mutoid immediately stopped struggling and stared ahead impassively. Semele was taken away from the interrogation room by 3 Federation troops, visibly exhausted, her body hanging limply between them and her feet dragging on the floor. Lamia turned to look at Reid, her hazel eyes glittering with excitement.
Well, Space Commander, that was certainly worth the interruption.
I am glad you think so.
Reid furnished Lamia with a rare smile.
Do we have everything ready to report?
Yes, Commissioner. It was instantly recorded and processed. The report includes detailed brain print recordings obtained from the mutoid.
Excellent.
Lamia moved towards a console at the side of the room and glanced at the report being processed.
I assume we will take Semele back to Space Command for reconditioning as soon as we are able to leave here.
Yes, she'll be reconditioned as a standard mutoid, and her fate will be made known to all other mutoids as an example, should any of her kind be harbouring thoughts of rebellion.
I will call a halt to the mutoid modification program, and Semele will be used to research exactly what went wrong with the programming of the most recent models.
She glanced at Reid to see his response, which was a broad smile that made his dark features look even more feral than normal.
I thought you would like that, Space Commander.
She pressed a sequence of switches on the console in front of her, and Reid glanced at her sharply. Despite their temporary truce, his liking and trust in Lamia was ever diminishing.
What are you doing, Commissioner?
Don't worry. You will receive the commendation you deserve, as will Squadron 5. The SI needs to be aware of progress, as you well know.
Reid frowned, unable to hide his disdain for the mysterious figure that, much like the Commissioner, encroached on military matters. Lamia turned and stood up.
This will be of huge benefit for us both. It is history repeating itself, and yet with a crucial difference. This time we will take the alien ship, the Vindictus as they so charmingly call it. Ironic, really. The revenge and vindication they sought will be ours instead. We will have Aurak, and we will capture ourselves a set of renegades, including Villa Restal, and the cousin of none other than the infamous Rog Blake.
She paused for a moment and smiled.
It is a shame that Semele disposed of that traitor Del Tarrant, but I suppose it is one less job for us. You see, we have the full house here, Space Commander. Something not even President Servalan was ever able to achieve.
With that dramatic announcement hanging in the air, Lamia left the room, leaving Reid smiling fiercely, his hand reaching up unconsciously to straighten the Federation insignia pinned on his uniform over his heart.
It's been too long, Blake.
Ensor, Villa and Blake sat anxiously on the flight deck.
I didn't realise you cared.
I don't. But what I do care about is that we are sitting ducks with only a moon for cover, while half the Federation is swarming around Nessos. Furthermore, our 2 space combat experts are down there on the planet. If we are attacked, I rate our chances as slim to 0.
He has a point. I don't like those odds, Blake.
I dare not risk making contact. It may alert attention to Callan and Semele, and we have no idea what situation they may be in down there.
Then get Koyos to scan for their location using the bracelets as locators.
Good idea. Koyos, did you hear that instruction?
Confirmed. Analysis is underway as instructed.
There was an uneasy silence as the crew awaited Koyos's report. The frequent flashing lights on the brown hexagonal display in front of them indicating the computer was deep into its work.
Information. 2 bracelets have been located and are approximately 400 meters apart in the detention area situated within the Law Enforcement Center in the city of Nessos. Analysis indicates the bracelet worn by Callan is at ground level and has not moved for over an hour. The other bracelet, worn by Semele, has moved frequently but is now stationary. Readings indicate that neither bracelet is currently being worn on a humanoid wrist.
Then they're in trouble.
It is reasonable to assume that as the bracelets are within the detention area and are not being worn, that both of them have been captured. I suggest we get out of here before we are captured or destroyed.
We can't leave them down there. I simply won't do that, Ensor. Koyos is monitoring for any activity and Aurak is ever scanning for communications. We are staying unless you want to go down there and launch a heroic rescue.
Blake stared at Ensor, looking to provoke a response, which was not forthcoming.
I didn't think you would. Villa, go and operate the teleport in case they need a quick pickup. That is all we can do for now.
Ensor deliberately rolled his eyes in a show of petulance, which Blake chose to ignore. The holding cells in the detention area were reasonably hospitable, but were only designed to house 1 person each. Due to the recent increase in insurgent arrests, the cells were now overcrowded with multiple prisoners, so packed in that they could only sit and not stretch out in comfort.
This is Federation Central Broadcast, transmitting from Nessos Government Headquarters.
Public broadcasts of executions were occurring frequently throughout the day as a show of authority and to exemplify what happened to those who disobeyed.
Deterrence protocols have been deemed effective.
Since being placed in the only cell with any space left, Callan sat as silent as his cell companion. Despite her silence, he could not help noticing that she seemed on edge, twitching, breathing heavily at times, and obviously anxious, but without any apparent reason. She was of average height, in her mid to late 30s, with a slightly masculine physique that evidenced a regular fitness routine.
Viewing is mandatory.
Callan observed that her narrow, dark blue eyes and angular features looked sharp and were exacerbated by the blunt cut of her shoulder-length blonde hair.
This message will repeat.
My name is Tavia, and I'm from here, from Nessos. Just thought I'd say, since we're both here waiting out our final hours, it would be kind of nice to at least talk to each other. Do you want to say who you are?
I am Callan of the clan Vidrassin from the planet Zardith.
Awesome! A Zadethan! We may be able to get out of here after all. You guys fight for fun, right?
We fight for honor. There is no other reason to fight.
I get you, but there's no honor being stuck in here with me, right? So, you'd fight to escape, maybe. Kick some ass and help a girl out of a tight spot, yeah?
I must find out what's happened to my companion before I can even think about a strategy to escape, if that's possible.
Callan's attention diverted from Tavia to the intricate locking system on the cell door.
Oh, don't worry about that. I can have that open in no time.
Then why are you still here?
I have no way of fighting off all the guards out there, and if I did, I have no place to go anyway. So I'm stuck until I can get help, or my name comes up for the chop. I figure maybe you and whoever you're waiting for may be able to help, right?
We can form an alliance, if you can open that door as easy as you say. But I must wait for my companion before we do anything.
You have somewhere we can go?
Tavia's confident, straightforward manner appealed to Callan, and she was obviously clever and capable of quick, clear thinking.
I have a way of escaping this planet instantly if a communication bracelet I discarded has not been taken by the guards.
How does a comms bracelet get us out of here?
Our ship has teleport capabilities, and I think that the bracelet is the link.
Callan's uncertainty regarding the technology involved was more than evident.
So, it looks like I can help you if you help me, right? I can open that door if you take me with you using your whatever. Deal?
Tavia spat on her hand and offered it to Callan.
We must wait for my fellow crew member first. It is dishonorable to leave her.
Not being funny, but we don't know how long we've got. We could be called next to get the bullet. Okay, if that's the only deal we got going on here. So, do we have a deal or what?
Tavia stretched out her hand again. Callan looked at the angular features of the muscular, stocky female, with her shoulder-length dirty blonde hair and worn brown leather outfit, thinking to himself that she was obviously someone who had seen action. He gazed into her dark blue eyes to see if she would flinch, but she didn't, and met his stare without looking away. To Callan, this indicated a sign of sincerity, and as this was all he had to go on, he shook Tavia's hand agreeably. Suddenly Tavia froze and gestured to Callan to be quiet.
Guards coming.
She tensed, and a wary look darkened her blue eyes. Callan was reminded of Villa briefly, as Tavia seemed to have the same ability to sense potential danger that the thief possessed. Not really surprising, the warrior thought to himself, and judging by the way Tavia had sized up the lock on the cell door, Callan felt sure that she and Villa shared a similar livelihood. The sound of approaching guards reached Callan's ears, and the cell door abruptly flew open. Semele was unceremoniously dumped on the floor of the cell by a large guard who seemed pleased at seeing the slender mutoid hit the ground. Slamming the cell door, the guard's footsteps faded into the distance. Callan felt an unexpected surge of pity looking at Semele's slumped form on the floor. Despite the twinges of revulsion that he still felt for the mutoid, he had begrudgingly come to admire her courage under fire, and he now offered his hand to help her up. Shaking off Callan's proffered hand, Semele rose slowly and faced him.
I told them things about the Vindictus, Callan, about the crew, everything. They used a mind probe.
This is Federation Central Broadcast, transmitting from Nessos Government Headquarters.
Her eyes were a dull, greyish colour now, instead of their usual, more vivid green.
Semele, there is no shame in defeat if the enemy fights with dishonour. I have no doubt that they would have extracted nothing from you using more conventional means. There's no time for self-recrimination. We must get out of here and get back to the Vindictus. We and the rest of the crew are even more danger now.
How, Callan? I would gladly kill all of them. But that door bars our escape, and we don't have Villa with us to get through that lock.
Well, that's where I come in.
Tavia took in the slender form and perfect features of the mutoid with an appreciative glance.
You didn't mention your companion was a mutoid. This just gets more and more interesting.
Both Callan and Semele seemed taken aback with Tavia's ability to spot the mutoid's true nature, since Semele was not wearing the distinctive uniform. Again, Callan was reminded of Villa and his uncanny ability to read everyone he came in contact with, picking up on the slightest cues. Unlike Villa, though, the blonde woman looked like she could handle herself in a fight, and right now, that was all that mattered. That, and opening the locked door.
This should only take a few minutes, so both of you be ready to kick some ass when I get this door open.
Tavia turned her attention to the lock.
Emotional outbursts, non-verbal dissent, or hesitancy to comply will be reported and dealt with accordingly. At 1100 hours, additional terminations will commence. Viewing is mandatory. Remember, acknowledgement is allegiance. Allegiance is survival. This message will repeat. Honor the order. Uphold the harmony. Glory to the Federation.